we're ready.
Explain them. All right, excellent. So, before we all watched 2 TED Talks, and TED Talks, if you guys remember, actually Janice introduced me to them. I know you had already discovered them, Kate, on your own, but are these 15-minute, 12-minute talks that professionals give on a variety of topics. So we watched 2 TED Talks, one on Rita Pearson, yeah, on relationships with kids, and one was Pearl Arredondo on her kind of upbringing in a gang neighborhood and starting her own school, which also was about relationships with kids. So what I would like to do is kind of talk about, let's talk about Rita's first, and then Pearl's, and then see if we can draw some parallels, and then how does that, what should we do with that information? All right, we've watched the videos, so what?
You mean like fitting in with our program planning? And
yeah, for summer. So next year.
One of the things that stood out for me with Rita's, first of all, you could see she was an established, seasoned teacher, but her dynamism and the way she presented the significance of relationship building. And I think it was something that a lot of people know, but the way she phrased things, it really brought it home. Because she says things like, kids are not going to learn if they're not relating to you. They're just not going to learn. It's just going to be kind of, they'll just be there. So, I really liked how she kind of pulled everything together to make that.
Right, it's the beauty of the TED Talk is that things you're thinking, she said so succinctly.
Exactly, she did. She did.
I like what she said to the teacher who said, I just want to teach, I don't care if the kids relate to me.
Yes.
And then she said, we'll have a very frustrating year.
Because, I'm sure there are people who would think that. They don't need to relate to me. I can teach them this subject, and this subject. They don't need to relate to me. But in reality, we know.
Well, we all know that's the R we all talk about.
Yes.
Relationships.
Well, just even with the kids, even this week, students are like, okay, this so-and-so teacher gave me a D or an E. I'm like, well, the teacher can't influence your grade. However, your willingness and your desire to do the work for the teacher based on how you feel the teacher feels about you is up to you. And that's where it ties into the whole relationship building. So, like she said, she just said it clearly and simply.
Right. I loved her accountability piece. Apologizing. I made a mistake. Although it was really, she was lambasted on the comments. You should know your math. I thought that was really funny. But I love the fact that she's accountable. We hold kids accountable all the time. We as adults don't apologize all that much, I feel.
Right.
And I think that's a really important piece. I made a mistake.
And when kids point it out to you, to say, I'm glad you caught that, kind of thing. Which kind of validates who they are. And I think that's that's probably one reason why she mentioned that. It validates kids when you can say, hey, I'm human too, I made a mistake.
But she also makes it a point to say that, I still have things to learn. I can still learn from other people, but more importantly, I can still learn from kids. There's a power differential that I think kids feel. And when you get into the classroom, if you don't say that I'm sorry or you're right or acknowledge what they can contribute, then it leaves you, not wanting to produce.
And the warmth, just her whole being. There's so much warmth that exudes. And I think that a lot of adults, and you talked about power, the power differential, authoritative, what role you play as a teacher relating to a student. Do we come all the way down? I mean, there are arguments for everything, I think. A lot of teachers start out very, if I start out like this, then I can roll it back down. And I've seen, there was a teacher in 6th grade, I'm so impressed by his sort of ability to be very structured, and then those kids love him. And I've almost thought of it bordering on disrespect, but I think there's a profound respect that he has for kids that I'm just starting to recognize and admire even. And anyway,
when I first started teaching, I started out as a camp counselor, and by December my classroom was a zoo, and I had to come back in after Christmas break and become really firm, almost extremely firm, and then that was my first year teaching. So as you hone your craft, you figure out where's the balance of camp counselor and dictatorial leader, and it's somewhere in between, and there's relationship in the middle. And there's caring in the middle.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many students I've had come to me and they will say, I don't like this teacher. I don't like this teacher. Therefore, I'm not going to work. So then my job becomes, and I think this is how we can use some of this, my job becomes, I have to help them understand you don't have to like the teacher. But I'm thinking in my head, oh my goodness,
I
it
know.
would be so great if you did like the teacher.
Yes.
Because for some students, that connection, that relationship is everything.
Mhm.
It's everything.
Right.
And they will work
To please you.
to please you, if they like you. And even if you get angry with them. If they like you, the next day they're just, they come
I
in.
think by
and-
8th grade, the job is to teach them to get their learning no matter
no
what.
matter
Right.
what, yes, yes.
But that's not the preferable side.
I know,
Right.
absolutely.
And let's compare her to Pearl now, because Pearl is a 4-year or 5-year teacher. I mean, and actually some of the comments were like, how could she have a charter school? She's barely
A
been
teacher,
teaching.
right.
And compared to Rita, she did look, that's actually very comparison friendly. But so she was brought up, her father was in a gang,
Yep.
lived in LA, and her mom said, you're going to escape this life, and sent her across
Away,
town to school where she learned about people who care about kids and cared about what happened to you last night, that your homework didn't get done, or that you were just hovering under the couch while, shots are being fired in your living room. And she decided she wanted to start a school that they didn't have to leave their neighborhood for that kind of a kind and caring school. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things, after I heard her, I started thinking about, it would be great to see her data.
Yeah,
Whether or
that
not
was in the comments.
Yes, whether or not her school is actually working. I mean, how do you tell if you're having a successful learning environment? And I know we're always kind of shaky sometimes about the significance of hard data, but
Right.
sometimes you do need it.
And they got out of state tests for a couple of years. I don't know how she finagled that.
Yes. But I do like her vision for having an environment where throwaway kids, sometimes I just will not function in a normal school environment. They will need another place. And so her vision to get people together to buy in, I admire her for that.
I love that. Comments about the hard data. It would need time. These are kids where basic needs aren't being met.
Right.
Social, emotional, physical. So I would love to look at the data, because I think maybe there'd be a curve. It would start out
Shaky.
really, not looking real good,
Right.
because these kids need a chance to fill other parts of their beings
Right,
before they
right.
can attend to actual learning. And that's what I thought about when I watched it.
Well, that takes time.
Mhm.
I mean,
It does take
because
time.
building trust and
Right.
building relationships with
Exactly.
teachers and a school, no less, that's struggling with students of, victims of circumstance. And then that's what they say in some of the comments, that it's the difference between students who have the coping skills and resiliency, much like Perla, versus students who don't have those skills. And if you develop those skills, then that's when we're going to see a child succeed.
And we've seen 2 kids from the same struggling family. One is an overachiever, and one is really struggling. And
Yeah.
I mean, so some of it is what you're born with, or maybe even the family was intact when child A was born, but by the time child B comes along, there's been this chaos. So we do need to look at,
Family circumstance, or
Yeah.
life circumstance, because everybody brings it to the building.
yeah.
And although we need to protect kids, I've found that there have been times when I've had to say more. Sometimes more than I'm comfortable with. Let me tell you more about the student. There is absolutely no support. Did you know this kid? I'm thinking of one of my kids who has absolutely no support. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Everything on his own. Where most of our kids have something, some accountability at home, but it's important to share that.
So that goes back to relationships, because actually those are the kids that sometimes, if they can get a few good adults or a mentor like that, the Boys to Men program or the Girls to Women program, if they can have some adult to hold on to, that actually may be what the relationship that sustains them through middle school.
And they talked about, there's a lot of research talking about resiliency of students who are in those circumstances of what's her name, the second one?
Pearl. And
Of Pearl's environment. She survived because she was resilient.
And her mom believed in her.
And her mom, she had relationships, she had an
Just a
adult.
strong
Yes, she
leader as
did.
a role model.
She had someone to latch onto. Often I will ask students, who do you admire? And I just asked the student that this week, and he looked and he says, I don't know. I don't know. So I tried to help him to develop, to really kind of think about the people he knows, family, friends, even movie stars, someone, and ask, to kind of get him thinking along those lines.
And
But
what
that's
is
powerful,
politics.
because that builds resilience. If you see someone or connect with someone who does do and overcome, that's really powerful. And I think as educators, we are that resilient source for many, many students,
Well,
and
we
we don't
should be.
recognize it.
But we should
We
be,
don't
or
recognize
more of us should be.
it.
So looking, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and somehow we have to communicate that to other staff, you know, because we've had that, we've talked about this before, how, yes, there's us, and we have a very specific job in terms of teaching those skills, but it should transition, it should move also into the classroom.
So, yeah, which gets me back to what I want to say. No, it's perfect, bridging. We always do that. I love this. So the relationship piece, so important. This message and these TED Talks are really good. They were really meaty, I thought. And so where does that inform our work? And I think one thing I'd like to do next year, and we talked about this week at PLCI, is us getting back into team meetings, into grade level team meetings where we're doing some lessons. And I think the work is here, and I hope you guys agree. You know, we did all that stuff on kind of understanding the adolescent brain, understanding kids, but why do we do that? Because we want the teachers to relate to the person sitting in your classroom. So maybe we can pull back from that kind of biological, here's what's going on in their brain, and get back to how do you build relationships with kids, where is in that work, especially. You know, we've been doing this since I've been here, like refreshing your toolbox, and it's always about, because it's hard, and I know there are kids who I like working with more than others, so how do I overcome that? Just because, you know, the quirky or whatever child that you, or here they are again, down to my office, ugh, but we all have to work to get past that.
I like what one of the TED Talk speakers, the one who's a seasoned educator, said. She was saying, someone mentioned to her, well, I don't like this student, something along those lines. And she said, something along the lines of, you be a great actor.
Yes,
You be a great actors. Educators are great actors. You pretend. If you don't like that student, you pretend. Oh, I'm so glad to see you. You know, you did a great job.
I know you had told you, I'll never forget little Matt, who must be 20-something by now. And every morning he would walk in my classroom, it was self-contained, 8 boys or whatever, and I would say something nice to him. Your nice shoes, you have nice shirt, because I knew that was the only nice thing I was saying to him all day. The rest of the day was going to be, sit down, shut up. I was like, hi Matt, I'm so happy to see you, and then nothing nice the rest of the day. Maybe when he was leaving, I would say one more nice thing. See you tomorrow.
But you bring up a really good point. The reality is there are 30 kids at least in a classroom, and it gets frustrating. And when you have a handful of students who interrupt instruction, then how do you maintain your composure? Because you know, I want to be careful when we address teachers that we're not insulting them in the sense that they already know this, and I know that they put forth their best effort, but then what really do we do? What skills or what message can we give them to actually implement? Because sometimes theory is a lot different.
Well, and I think if you've experienced, if you've been in the classroom, because I've taught in the classroom, and I think if you have that kind of experience, you have a sense of some of the strategies that may work for you. The other part of that is to be open. And I think as educators, it's important to embrace new knowledge. And if a new knowledge means trying this new strategy, that's going to help me be more effective. Some people are really willing, oh yes, I know this, oh, you know, I can really try this. Some people, I mean, it's just like in any profession, some people are like, nah, it's not going to work. So I think there's an element of professional accountability that, you know, we can come up with all these great ideas and strategies, etc., but it's up to the individual educator to say, this is something important, something I need to kind of make a part of my toolkit.
I like what Carmen said, and I think this is actually maybe a starting point, and there's 2 things I'd like to do this summer. One is that we should do a part where we start with where they are. Because I think that's a validation. We know the teachers in our building work really hard. We know they try to build relationships. We know most of them are, if not all of them, except for when you get that kid who's driving you absolutely crazy. So I think maybe starting where they are and sharing, maybe doing some kind of an assessment or data, or, you know, what are you guys using that's working? And we could even share beyond, in between grade levels, because if they're only meeting with a grade level team, we could be the voice and then, you know, and obviously what a 6th grader needs could be different, what an 8th grader needs. So one thing is to develop some kind of assessment to see where they are. We could do that this summer. And then the second thing
To
is
see where they are in terms of what?
In terms of building relationships. What are the things you're already doing? No, that was good. Where are you in building relationships? I like when you make me clarify. It's good for me. And then the second thing I was thinking that this summer and I'm looking over here because, you know, you'll be on the beach eating bonbons.
I know.
But I'm thinking we should do some research about what works in schools. Where is the research? Where is the data? And see if there's something that we're not doing that we could I don't know, add and enhance, and, you know, I think there's lots of things that people are working on, but I think that's our second thing, is to kind of see what else is out there, or what programs are there, or what data is out there. Is there an inspiring video out there that we could do some more of this on?
Strategies too.
Strategies.
But then what are
Particularly for challenging students. And I
Yes,
think that's, because I think most folks.
That Upside Down organization has a ton of stuff.
And also, because we started here with TED Talks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I talk about TED Talks in the framework of intellectual curiosity.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And we're talking about teachers being curious, the staff, you know, wanting to learn the continuum. So it might be a good way to start, you know, using TED Talks to sort of set
I
the tone.
love them. I think it's one of the greatest resources online, because they're short, they're stimulating, and the speakers are outstanding. And they make wonderful. You know, even talking on those lines. The one about the guy with the computers in the wall.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. I
That
love to
little
share that
TED
with teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ted is my new work boyfriend.
Yes.
I love Ted.
Yeah, I'm feeling
So I think we have some good ideas, some good steps. I think that we should come back in July and with our new insert person here and bring them on board. And I think we can definitely, you know, I think this was great. This was a great.
Can we add one
Yeah.
thing to
Definitely.
the assessment part in
Yes.
tandem with it? What are where they are, but also what are the challenges? Like, what are their most frustrating areas? So that's why we're meeting their needs.
You know, you're going to get to make that survey come, of course.
For one brain.
All right. Well, thanks, you guys. This was an awesome meeting.
Thank you.
good. Thank you. Well done.